The opening of the Nottingham Mellor, a celebration of British Asian art. But as voters contemplate perhaps another general election, another of Boris Johnson's ministers is refusing to dance to his tune. The now ex-Work and Pension Secretary Amber Rudd has quit the cabinet with an outspoken attack on the government's approach to Brexit.
When earlier in the week I asked Number 10 for a summary of what the planning was for actually getting a deal, I was sent a one-page summary. So it's the combination of the fact that there's not enough work going into actually getting a deal, which is, I think, is not what the Prime Minister signed up to try to do, and secondly, the expulsion of 21 of my colleagues who are good, moderate Conservatives.
And so the 21 are now 22, with speculation that others could follow.
We will leave anyway. Even if we don't, we will leave anyway on October the 31st.
The resignation comes after a week described by Mr Johnson's critics as calamitous. A cross-party group of MPs seized control of the parliamentary agenda, voted through a bill to block a no-deal Brexit, and then rejected his call for a snap election. But will the Prime Minister's manoeuvres please the crowds? His strategists are framing the events as merely the opening moves in the battle of the people versus Parliament. How will voters view it in a city that was almost evenly split between Leave and Remain? Sharik Sadiq travels the country with his food stall.
Boris Johnson says he's just doing what people voted for. People voted to leave. That's what he's trying to bulldoze through. What do you think?
I mean, that's fine. We voted to leave. However, the way he's gone about it is wrong. We need a deal. We can't leave the EU without a deal.
I really don't know what's going to happen. I think it's just absolute chaos, and it's really frightening for everyone.
Don't understand what's going on. It's all confusing between both parties. Even if Labour wins an election, I don't think they'll be any better.
Really? You haven't got confidence any of them?
Not either of them. If there's an election, I don't know who to vote for.
Enjoying the Mellor with his family, John Holden describes himself as a Labour leaver.
But you voted Leave.
I did. But
so isn't he just doing what you wanted,
no.
you wanted voted for?
He wants a no deal, full stop. Boris Johnson just wants he's playing the game. His ultimate goal is obviously to be the kind of hero of getting Brexit through.
After a discordant week in Parliament, we've seen politics turned on its head. And now the Conservatives, traditionally the party of law and order, are reportedly considering how to defy the law.
The Foreign Secretary has said the government will look carefully at the interpretation of the law blocking a no-deal.
Because this is such a bad piece of legislation, the surrender bill that Jeremy Corbyn backed, we also want to test to the limit what it does actually lawfully require.
We expect the Prime Minister to abide by the law. If he doesn't, obviously we'll do everything we possibly can. There will be others, I'm sure, who will legally challenge him if necessary. But we're hoping he sees sense and just behaves like a Prime Minister.
The legislation should gain royal assent tomorrow. The political tempo isn't likely to get any slower, as Mr Johnson has been warned he could face legal action if he chooses to flout it. Darshna Soni, Channel 4 News, Nottingham.
So, more extraordinary things to come this week. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with me. I mean, let's start with Amber Rudd and its significance.
What Amber Rudd did was slightly different from what Boris Johnson's brother, did. She challenged quite explicitly Boris Johnson's judgment in getting rid of those people out of the party, but also his word. She challenged the whole idea specifically that there were real negotiations going on in Brussels at all. I'm told that she came to the decision on Wednesday night, and that tells you something else as well. She waited until Sunday, a day when the government quite often likes to sort of try and pivot the news back somewhere where it can work better for them. This was very preconceived, targeted, intended to undermine. And when you look at the decision to wait until Sunday, and also bear in mind the fact that she's talking about standing under different colours at the next general election, and there are these conversations going on amongst former Tory MPs, now independents who intend to run again, about how they're going to interlink maybe with other parties. One former minister floating the idea of taking a soft Lib Dem whip. You just get a sense of the intent of these people. Will they deliver? That's one of the questions people at Number 10 throw back at you. But the other question they throw back at you is Amber Rudd always was flip-flopping, and who's heard of her anyway?
So what happens tomorrow and this week?
tomorrow, what's meant to happen, what's in the diary to happen, is that Boris Johnson is going to rerun the vote that tries to trigger an early general election on October the 15th. It's just possible he doesn't do it, but it's expected still that he is going to press that button tomorrow to try to unease Jeremy Corbyn and others who will not vote for that. It won't succeed. October the 15th will not be the date of the next general election. And then Dominic Cummings, the Prime Minister's senior aide, was telling people in Whitehall at the end of last week, no question, we're sending all the MPs home. So prorogation should start tomorrow as well, that controversial prorogation. Prime Minister is going to be meeting Leo Varadkar, the Irish Prime Minister, but the real focus, I think, is what happens a little bit further down the line if there is a European summit at which there is no sign of a deal whatsoever. Does Boris Johnson sign the letter that the bill the MPs passed requires him to sign and send to the EU requesting a delay to the Brexit date? You heard Dominic Raab alluded to there, a line that's coming out of number 10. We have different interpretations, they're saying, of the law. They're not being at all specific about what those interpretations are, but I'm told senior civil servants are laying down the law and saying, to coin a phrase, laying down the law and saying quite clearly that civil servants will down tools if it looks like the Prime Minister is not obeying the law. Again, what's number 10 saying back to all of this? They're saying that look at that opinion poll today. It shows a Tory lead increasing. All of these things that we're talking about not necessarily having an impact with a key set of voters who one day, maybe later in the autumn, maybe the beginning of the winter, might just get a chance to cast their verdict on all of this in a general election.
Thanks, Gary. Well, joining me now from West London, the former Attorney General, Dominic Grieve. He was one of the 21 Conservative MPs expelled from the parliamentary party for defying Boris Johnson over a no-deal Brexit. Well, you heard what Dominic Raab said. They think this is a very bad law that you've got yourself involved in, and they're going to test the limit of it in the courts. They're going to take you to the Supreme Court, bury you in judges, and then no deal happens. Is there any danger of that?
I don't think so. They're fully entitled to test the law as much as they like, but I think the law is very simple and very straightforward, and if the Prime Minister won't implement it, he will be challenged and taken to court. And I think the court will direct that the law must be implemented and the letter must be written.
Are you worried at all by the opinion polls that suggest voters aren't going in your direction, they're going in Boris Johnson?
No, I'm not. I'm well aware that Boris Johnson is pursuing a populist, reckless, and frankly pretty disgraceful course of action. And yes, I have no doubt that that may have some immediate attractions. But what's important, I think, for people like myself is that we should go out and make absolutely clear that what we're trying to do is to reduce the risk of catastrophic damage to this country, which he seems to be quite willing to contemplate. And he's not telling the truth. He says he wants to pursue no deal because it's the weapon to get in the deal. And yet we've just heard from Amber Rudd that in fact there is no attempt at getting a deal at all. My view is that he's a really quite serious menace now to our democracy, and it worries me very much, and it's not in the Conservative tradition at all. And so what we've got to do is to try to get this message simply across.
Are you the Conservatives who were purged by Boris Johnson from the parliamentary party? Are you now effectively a new political party? Is that where this is heading? Are you working as a group?
We're certainly working together, but I don't think I would describe ourselves as a political party. We're a group of independent MPs. It's only 3 days since we were chucked out.
But when it comes to the election, is what I mean.
People are now in. Well, when it comes to the election, I shall stand as I've explained. If the election takes place while Brexit is still unresolved, I will stand as an independent in the Conservative tradition in my constituency, and it will give my constituents the opportunity to decide what they want. It's up to them, but I shall do that. And I think that's what my fellow Conservatives will do. Some may decide to join other parties, I don't know. And it's possible that we will, in fact, it's not just possible, it's highly probable that we will work closely together. But I think that's different from setting up a new political party.
So this idea of taking a soft Lib Dem whip, working with the Lib Dems on votes, is correct?
It's the Liberal Democrats and ourselves have cooperated closely in recent months over the threat that a no-deal Brexit poses to our country. So cooperating with the Liberal Democrats is perfectly feasible. But that's a slightly different thing from saying that we are going into a formalised alliance or being merged into the Liberal Democrats. But I'd like to emphasise we are 3 days since these events have taken place. And I'm certainly not going to be rushed. I want to try to do what I think is best for my country. That's the line I'm going to take. And I'm prepared to cooperate with people of all parties, including my own party, the people from whom I've been parted by the Prime Minister, to try to achieve that.
This is going to boil down, though, when it gets to the election, whenever it is, to a choice when it comes to the Prime Minister between Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson promising no deal and Jeremy Corbyn promising a second referendum and possibly Remain. Are you going to end up saying to British voters, Corbyn is better than Johnson in that scenario?
I think your comments, if I may say so, are thoroughly premature. I have no idea exactly when the general election is going to... Well, I think they are premature, actually. I have no idea exactly when the election is going to take place. It may well be that there is an election at the end of this year. But the circumstances in which that election takes place are likely to be even slightly different from where we are today. I'm perfectly aware that most of Jeremy Corbyn's policies are ones with which I fundamentally disagree. I've made that point on many occasions. I'm a Conservative. But the national interest, I think, will become clearer as we get closer to this election. What I am absolutely satisfied about at the moment is that leaving with no deal never featured as a promoted offer by the Leavers in the 2016 referendum, that the evidence suggests that leaving with no deal will damage every man, woman and child in a really palpable fashion in this country. And my recommendation to the Prime Minister is if he wants to do this, he should go back and get confirmation from the British electorate that that's what they want. If that is what they want, I'll never raise the subject again.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to let this Prime Minister drag this country out to such a dangerous and risky future without doing that.
Well, that does mean, maybe it's premature, maybe it's months away, but that does mean people are going to say to you on the doorstep, Mr. Grieve, when it comes down to it, you're a Conservative. Do you want a Conservative government? Or do you think it's better to have something else?
Well, I think what I would be saying to people on the doorstep at the election is they know what I stand for and the point of view I wish to put over, and I would like their vote. That is the essential issue in the general election. It's the question of whether the electorate in Beaconsfield think I will be able to represent their interests in Parliament. But as I say to you, I think we're several months away from this. And in the meantime, I'm not going to speculate on exactly where the state of our national politics are.
Several months?
Well, I think we are several months away, yes. I don't think there is going to be the trigger of a general election until after we have got an extension to Article 50. Indeed, to hold a general election without having that extension would be very dangerous. So, my understanding is it is likely, therefore, that the trigger for an election, if there is going to be one, will be after the Article 50 extension has been obtained. That suggests to me, if there is to be a general election, it's likely to be in late November or early December.
Dominic Grieve, thank you very much.